What's up, everybody? It's the Slate. It's a Friday. What a time to be alive. Adam Kaufman, Jeff Ulrich, Matt LaMarca. We are here. We're going to bounce around. We're going to obviously look ahead to tonight's pivotal game for the NBA Finals in South Beach. Look back at what happened last night in Sunrise, so also South Florida, between the Panthers and Golden Knights. Maybe mix in a little baseball and golf if there's time. And I do want to, unlike yesterday, I want to make sure we have some time for football before we're out because Dalvin Cook is looking for a new home. DeAndre Hopkins is looking for a new home. And these are just, they're important things. But guys, first and foremost, LaMarca, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Adam. Thank you for asking. Excited for a game 4 tonight. I think this one should be a good one. You know, game 3, the Nuggets kind of ran away with things, but I think today's game should be a little bit more competitive, and I'm excited for a fun game.
So one, I hope you're wrong because that's just where my money is. But also,
first say hello to Jeff.
I'm sorry. Hi, Moose.
Acknowledge me.
Hey, buddy. Acknowledge me. How are you, Moose?
Doing great. Thank you.
Great. I'm looking forward to the hockey talk with you. But since LaMarca already started on basketball, LaMarca, you know, he's like, let's just get to the basketball. So let's get to the basketball. Like I was saying, I hope you are wrong. I hope it is a comfortable Denver win for a variety of reasons, both financially and emotionally. But what I would ask you is if we get a closer game, be it a Miami win or just something that's tighter and more competitive, as you said, to me, and I feel like this is fairly obvious, the recipe for that is 1, get hot from 3, and 2, your role players need to show up, which obviously they did not in game 3. So,
yeah, well, those are kind of the same thing, right? Miami's role players are pretty much going to all be perimeter shooters. So
yeah, that's fair. So I guess what in your mind makes game 4 tonight, trying to tie up this series, obviously for the Heat, what makes this more competitive? Who steps up among those role players?
Well, if I knew that, I'd be rich. I think that the formula for Miami is they've kind of been stuck between two different ideas, right? They're kind of trying to go big with Kevin Love back in the starting lineup and play, good defense against the Nuggets. But they're also, a 3-point shooting team, and they're going to need to make and take a bunch of 3-pointers if they are going to upset a team as good as Denver. So I think that what the Heat need to do here is to just go back to sort of the approach that they used against the Celtics, which is we're going to shoot as many threes as possible. I don't think that having a Kevin Love out there or a Haywood Highsmith out there really makes that much difference to the Heat's defense, right? Denver's going to get theirs regardless. Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray are just too good. So I would space the floor, Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin. I expect both guys to be, pretty heavily involved tonight. And what the Heat have shown us all playoffs is that they have nights where they won't miss. Game 2, prime example. Nobody gave them a chance of winning that game in Denver, but they shot nearly 50% from 3-point range and got the job done. So I think that we'll see a little bit of a better shooting performance tonight, and I think that the Heat kind of fully embrace the fact that they're going to have to outscore Denver to beat them. So my favorite play in this game is honestly just the over. I think that the Heat go with a smaller lineup, a more 3-point based approach, and that should benefit both teams on the offensive end.
All right, let's take a look then at, and we're showing you the DraftKings Sportsbook. You can see the Nuggets 3-point favorites. It's bounced around. We've seen 3.5. I don't think it ever climbed to 4. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but 211.5. That total that LaMarca says go over. Let's look at some of the player props here in terms of points, especially those role players. I think some of these totals maybe are a bit inflated, not among the role players, but like Butler at 26.5 points. I would probably go under to me, it's probably more of a stay away spot, but I would be inclined to go under if I was going to bet it. Jokic at 30.5. I know what he just did. I would still go under that. But if you're looking at the role players, Strus, 8.5. Lowry, 8.5. Vincent, 12.5. Robinson, 7.5. I don't see Kevin Love. Although if he were there, I imagine he'd be around 5.5, 6.5. Caleb Martin, 9.5, which is obviously considerably lower than what he was floating around at during the Celtics series because he has not been nearly as effective. Who are those guys that you would be inclined to target, or would you be more apt to look at 3-point props instead of point props?
Yeah, I mean, so Duncan Robinson, I think at plus 135 to the over, I think that's very much in play. Even in the last game, he only played roughly 14 minutes. He still got up 6 3-point attempts in that time. And Duncan shooting, a high percentage from 3-point range is something that I think is a pretty good bet. So I think he could play more minutes today. I think he could get a higher shot volume today. I have no problem playing an over at plus 135. And for what it's worth, I kind of like the Jimmy Butler over. I don't love the odds. It's been, hit pretty hard. So it's up to minus 145 to the over. But we saw Jimmy Butler in game 3 post his highest usage rate of the series. He got to 28 points. Towards the tail end of that Celtics series, he was playing nearly the full game. So I think 43, 44 minutes tonight for Jimmy Butler is certainly possible. And we've seen he's gotten to 27, 28 points a lot during this postseason. So I don't love the juice, but I think over on Jimmy Butler is actually a pretty solid option.
Do you think for Duncan Robinson now, would you play 3-point props or would you just play the straight up points?
It depends on which one I'm getting a better number on, right? Okay. So
Robinson over 1.5 threes is minus 130, by the way.
Yeah. So essentially I'm taking him to go over 2 threes when I take the over 7.5 points anyway.
Yeah.
So I would just play the plus 135 number. I think if he hits the over on his 3 prop, there's a pretty good chance he hits the over on his scoring prop.
No alt. I was looking to see if there were alt threes on Robinson, but there aren't as of right now. Martin over 1.5 at even money. Braun is that's actually a category you can find him. You can't get him on points right now after what he did in game 1, but over 0.5 3 at plus 195 for Christian Braun, the Rock Chalk Jayhawk, who went absolutely crazy, nuclear off the bench there for Denver. Something to think about. What about this? Is something I've been drawn to. You tell me if I'm an idiot, but something I've been drawn to for this game. Thank you. Are some of the combos, in particular, points rebounds. So, Aaron Gordon over 18.5 points rebounds is something that has hit, I believe, 3 or 4 straight games. You could look at, and I know it sounds nuts betting Michael Porter Jr. anything right now. His minutes are decreasing. He is a sieve defensively on the floor, but over 17.5 points rebounds. The shot volume generally is still there. He rebounds well, even in limited minutes. Those are 2 bets, 2 overs that I do like, LaMarca.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the MPJ over. I do think that like his playing time and his production are going to go pretty hand in hand. If he's making his shots and he's rebounding, he'll be on the floor more. It's a pretty simple formula. So if anything, I don't know if there are alternates that you can take on a point rebound prop, but that's something that would appeal to me because I think if he goes over, he goes over pretty easily. Like I don't know if maybe there's a double bet out there somewhere.
There is Porter double. Yes, is plus 700.
Yeah, that was literally plus 200 in game 2.
Really?
So I understand that there is a lot of uncertainty with him right now, but I do think that if he plays well, he's going to get the minutes. I also think you talked about Christian Braun. I've kind of been fading him sort of wherever possible heading into this game. He has been so lightning in the bottle for this team. He's 10 for 11 from the field over the past 2 games. I think eventually it comes crashing back to reality. Either Porter plays better and Braun loses minutes, or Braun just doesn't shoot the ball as well. Like there are a lot of paths for him to not have as large of an impact in game 4. So I'm kind of taking some flyers on unders where you can find them. I wouldn't bet under half a 3-point make since it's juiced so heavily, but there will probably be some Brown props that pop up elsewhere before game time. So check. I would say unders on him are another strong option.
Any other, before we go to hockey, any other game, bets from this game that you really like? Could you be one that I played in the last game that hit that I am tempted to play again in this one? I think the number is even tighter. Nuggets first half spread. I think it's like -1. Is that the kind, do you think Miami will be ahead at the break? Do you think Denver will be ahead at the break? What are you expecting?
That's too thin for me to pick. I would say that if I was forced to take a side in this game, I would take Heat +130 on the money line. I do think there's some sharp action on Miami at the moment. This is a team that has played well with their backs against the wall for years now. I think that they feed off of the doubt from people like you, Adam Kaufman. And I expect a big Jimmy Butler performance tonight. So I think if they cover the 3-point spread, right, like history kind of suggests that they'll just win the game outright. So yep. I would rather take the +130 on the money line as opposed to the spread, but the Heat are the side that I'm leaning towards.
All right, let's go pucks. And Ulrich, I'm going to pull up the DraftKings Sportsbook.
That's me.
Hockey page as well. Well, just first and foremost, last night Florida got it done in overtime. It was a game that you and I talked quite a bit about it yesterday. Mm-hmm. I feel like we had a pretty good read on it. We talked about multiple points for Tkachuk. We talked about a Marchessault anytime goal. It was just kind of a question of, if I remember right, you had said lean under on the goals. Yeah. Obviously that hit. So it was really just a question of who do you think is going to win the game? I thought Vegas was going to win. Obviously that didn't happen with the late goal by Tkachuk. But what'd you think of how that game played out and where we are now?
Yeah. I also mentioned Verhaeghe last night as, the guy who obviously scored the overtime goal. But I mean, in a lot of ways, the guys who I thought would show up for the Panthers showed up. I mean, Verhaeghe, Tkachuk, Bobrovsky, those are pretty much the three guys we talked about. So from that perspective, went exactly as I thought. It's funny because I actually thought Vegas played their best game of the series. I really thought those first two games, again, I know the score, it just looks so lopsided, but like those games broke on just really close plays where Florida was close to scoring or had the game tied. And then all of a sudden just one thing went. And then, like Vegas got a couple goals and it was just over. I thought Vegas played very well last night, but the tenacity of the Panthers kept them in it late and their guys showed up finally. And I think it's really interesting because I thought Florida, when they got out ahead, I'm like, okay, here we go. They'll put this one away and then we'll see with game 4. But then, Vegas came back and it looked bleak, but the players that the Florida Panthers have been relying on showed up again last night. And I think that's a really good sign for them because they still have some players down there. Barkov, Bennett, if these guys get going too, I mean, we talked about this yesterday, but I think this applies even more now because it's 2-1 and not 3-0. But looking at this series as okay, we've had the first two games, we had a break. Now what's happening here, and now what's potentially going to happen in the future? I think that Vegas has definitely been hitting the chin a little bit. They're not in. They've kind of found out they're not invincible. I think they were definitely riding a wave, and I've talked about Adin Hill a lot, and I just feel like at some point Florida is going to get to this guy and really just make him and really see what he's made of. He's already proven that he's made of really stern stuff in this playoffs. There's no doubt, but I think there's one more test coming, and I really think game 4 is going to be a lot of Panthers. I think that you may see guys like Barkov and Bennett show up. This team just needed to get a little bit of momentum. They're coming off the rusty break, and they did what they basically did to Vegas exactly what they did to the Bruins. They just hung in, and Bobrovsky was turning away the shots he needed to, and then Tkachuk just found the answer, and Verhaeghe found the answer, and I think you may see a little added momentum in game 4.
I also, maybe this is just like, maybe I have short-term memory on this, you could tell me, but And I do think Vegas is the better team, like obviously, like much better
Yeah,
regular season,
I
game minutes
kind of
favorites, but
agree, to be honest, because you have to give them credit for how well they've bounced back against other teams already. And I'm not necessarily going out of my way to bet the Panthers series either.
sure.
Just that clear.
Well, but what I was going to say to that is, and this is where I talk out of both sides of my mouth, if it ultimately comes down to goaltending, and Bobrovsky is the Bobrovsky we saw last night versus the guy we saw in the first two games of the series, that would, for me, be enough to give an edge to Florida to come back and win this thing, just because, you look back, like when's the last time an Adin Hill won the Stanley Cup? You know what I mean? Like a journeyman goalie who's very average, has never really done much in the league. You can go on a nice run in the playoffs, obviously, like, and that's really all you need to do if you got enough in front of you. But even still, it's, I don't know, like history is against him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been the odd player who's done it, who's gotten all the way. But you're right. I mean, generally those kind of stories, they tend to like peter out at some point where, they win a couple rounds and then it just ends. The one thing I'd say about Adin Hill is he's playing behind a really, really good team. So if there's any time it's going to happen, this is certainly it. But I think that's a good point of if Bobrovsky keeps playing like this thing could really get tight fast. I'm just trying to think of, we're both kind of on the same page in terms of how we're thinking about it. And I still think that, looking for this series to go 6 or 7 games, Florida plus 1.5 games right now, minus 115. It was like, I know we brought it up yesterday as well. That was one bet I really liked just in terms of seeing it go 6 or more. But it's still out there available. But
and I have, if Cody, you could bring up the DK Sportsbook series spread. I just pulled that up. Yeah, I don't know what would jump. Thank you. What would jump out at you here, if anything?
Probably just, again, asking it to go 6 or 7 games. So I mean, the odds have obviously tightened quite a bit.
Sure.
For all the blowouts that happened in game 1 and 2, we're still just this series is still just home ice. I mean, no one's lost on home ice yet. So, I mean, I think just asking it to go 6 or 7 games is probably where I would be looking at. But I don't know. I mean, at this point, we're 3 games into the final. I would just bet. I would just go to the game lines. I mean, I think the only futures bet that I would actually be looking at right now is if you, and we just kind of talked about this, if you like the Panthers to make a comeback, think about just betting Bobrovsky.
Conn Smythe.
Yeah, Conn Smythe. Yeah. I know Tkachuk is now the favorite, but I don't know about that, man. I mean, Verhaeghe is the guy getting some of these goals as well. I'm a little bit surprised that Tkachuk is. I guess Bobrovsky got pulled in that one game too, but still, I mean, that's definitely one way to think about it as well. So
yeah,
I don't know. I personally, I'm at the point where I'm just looking game to game. I really like the Panthers money line. We're getting the exact same odds we got in game 3, but now the Panthers are coming in with the momentum. Sergei Bobrovsky has just, put up another really good game. And I mean, Florida has done this. So I'm a little surprised the odds haven't shifted, but it's potentially just a situation where the public just wants to go back to Vegas once more.
Well, so game 4 tomorrow night.
I'll be going back to Vegas in game 4.
Oh, you will you? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know much about hockey. I preface that every time I say this, but they had more shots, they had more hits, they had more face-offs won.
It was their best game. Legitimately, it was their best game in the series.
Like they just every statistic you want to look at, it seems like they pretty thoroughly outplayed Florida. And I thought that they were the better team in the first 2 games, clearly. So I think that Vegas is the better team here. I thought that coming in, just when you look at, the expected goal stats and stuff like that. And I don't think that Bobrovsky has been, like markedly better than Adin Hill so far. So maybe that flips, again, the pressure is only going to ratchet up, but I'm still on Vegas. I had them to win the series and I still like them.
I'm just checking out the numbers at VSiN, by the way, which is obviously the DraftKings Sportsbook. Vegas plus 1.5 goals, so the goal line north of 80% of both the bets and handle on Vegas in that one. Whereas if you were to go straight money line for game 4, plus 100 for Vegas, that's about 70-30 split.
I think one way that you could look at this game too, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do this yet, but like if you like the Panthers here, maybe just play them on the puck line, because I don't know, man. Like I look at this game and I think if like Florida is either going to come in here and maybe just ride this momentum shift and just lay it down. I mean, we have seen Vegas get blown out a couple times the last two series. The Oilers and the Stars both did it. I could see this being the spot in this series. And I mean, again, like if you think it's going to be a close game, I'm not critiquing Matt's take. I think it's pretty reasonable just to look at the stats like that. The only thing I'd say is I think
you're allowed to critique it if you want to, Jeff.
No, I mean it's a reasonable take. I mean, I admitted right off the top, like Vegas played their best game, but yeah, I think that to me the way I'm kind of potentially going to play this game is that I think Florida really just grabs that momentum shift. They've been a weird team stat-wise in a lot of the playoffs. Bobrovsky's well above save expectation. They've been shooting hot, and that cooled off the first two games. But if that team comes back, I think you're at some point in this series, you're going to see them light Adin Hill up a little bit. So maybe the 60-minute line for Florida is something else to look at.
Let's get a little football talk in before we run out of time. We'll still get to some golf before the very end if we can as well. But obviously the biggest news, not surprising, we've known it was coming. Dalvin Cook is going to play somewhere else next year. No longer Minnesota. They're taking a roughly $5 million dead cap hit. Still owe him a couple $1 million. But after 6 years with the Vikings, he is on the outs, despite coming off of his fourth straight, almost 1,200-yard rushing season, never mind receptions as well, because obviously he doesn't do a whole lot in the passing game, but almost 1,200 yards in his 17 games last year, found the end zone 8 times as well. It was a good season, but they have Alexander Mattison to, fill that role. He's always been, very, very good when Cook has been out. So it would seem like that is the future there in Minnesota, kind of without question. So it now becomes, guys, where does Cook wind up? He's already been linked to the Dolphins, which is intriguing. LaMarca, we'll start with you here. Any surprise that this is happening in the first place, and where do you think he winds up?
No, it's not a surprise to me. I mean, it's a little surprise, but Dalvin Cook is going to be 28 before the start of the season.
Mm-hmm.
He is approaching that, dreaded age cliff for the running back position. I think it's smart to move on from a player maybe a little bit earlier than you should, as opposed to a little bit later. And, if you look at Dalvin's efficiency metrics last year, they were not nearly as good as they were in some of his earlier seasons. So I think that the real winners here are just the Vikings pass catchers in particular, and Kirk Cousins. Minnesota was a team that was way up there in terms of pass rate over expectation last year. They slung the ball all over the field. And I think that they will follow a pretty similar formula in this season, especially after using a first-round pick on another wide receiver in Jordan Addison. So, Alexander Madison, his name is Alexander Madison. He's going like as early as like the 3rd or 4th round now in some drafts. To me, that is crazy. I am not paying that price tag for him. But I do think that, it solidifies Justin Jefferson as the number 1 fantasy wide receiver. I think Jordan Addison is probably your best target amongst rookie receivers. And I think Kirk Cousins is a really appealing option at the position if you miss out on, the top tier of guys.
Moose?
Yeah, I mean, like Dalvin Cook, I think it's funny because I think it's a smart move by the Vikings. At the same time, I think it's actually going to hurt their offensive efficiency just a little bit. He was really good in the screen game. From an average like rush yards over expected rate, he declined. He was below average last season. It definitely makes sense to get rid of him. I mean, if anything, I'm just surprised that the Vikings were sharp enough to do it. But teams seem to be getting pretty savvy with these big RB contracts, and really, it's not that hard a decision because of how much money he was making. I'm not a big Alex Madison fan, to be honest. I think he's, as Matt said, it's crazy he's going that high. I know there's not much on the depth chart behind him, but I just don't think he's that good. And I do think it's going to hurt the Vikings, like I said, a little bit in that one area of the game, the screen game. So That's kind of just where I'm at. As far as where Dalvin Cook goes, I mean, I think one thing to take note of is when we get a Dalvin Cook rushing prop up, you may want to hit the under real quick because it's probably going to be too big. And he's probably going to go to a spot like Miami where there's like 4 other running backs. Like he could go to Miami and it doesn't mean he may not even get the most touches. I mean, Raheem Mostert is still like really good back. Denver, they just signed Samaje Perine. Certainly he'll get mixed in, but it may just be more as a pass catcher. So something to think about with Dalvin Cook, but I think Matt was right on in saying this is probably really good news for the Vikings pass catchers. I don't think that their run game is going to be quite as good. The screen game probably won't be quite as good, which just means the wide receivers will get more work.
And Hawkinson. I forgot to mention him, but Hawkinson
true.
is – I think there's a chance he's tight end too after Travis Kelce.
Him and Mark Andrews definitely kind of that second tier right now. I don't know who else I'd really put up there with them.
All right, so from Hawkinson to
Not Kyle
Hopkins,
Pitts.
Not Kyle Pitts. As much as it should be Kyle Pitts, not yet Kyle Pitts. The other sort of big football news of the day, even though it's not real news quite yet, but DeAndre Hopkins, who of course is one of the top free agents out there and seemingly is going to get paid unless he takes a discount to go to a contender, is going to meet with the Titans next week. He's going to meet with the Patriots next week. Articles have been written. Pats have immediate ability to sign him. They've got, I think, $13 million in cap space. Kendrick Bourne was asked about it earlier today, and this is going to shock you guys, but he said he'd love to play with DeAndre Hopkins. I think that whole wide receivers room, and especially Mac Jones, would love to play with DeAndre Hopkins. But again, sort of similar to the Dalvin Cook question, what do you think is most likely? I know we've talked about Hopkins, upon the immediate release a couple weeks ago, and Jeff, you were one of the people to sort of zero in on the Patriots just in terms of opportunity and money. But again, I wonder, LaMarca, could he just go to a Bills, a Chiefs, like a place where, he's not going to get paid as much, but there's an opportunity to win a ring?
I don't know. I'm kind of done talking about DeAndre Hopkins until he signs somewhere. He went from having 5 quarterbacks that he wanted to play with to now he's taking meetings with the Titans, and there's talk about a reunion with the Texans. Like, I think that the market for DeAndre Hopkins maybe isn't as robust as we imagine it is.
Yeah.
And as for the Patriots, I do think that's the most logical fit. I think they need him the most. I think you clearly look at, Bill Belichick has been enamored with this guy for years. Yep. So I do think it makes sense. And by the way, I hate that every time a receiver loses their job, immediately we have to talk about them to the Patriots. When is that going to stop being a thing? They brought
Hopefully when they signed DeAndre Hopkins.
One time. And ever since then, it's every free agent or cut wide receiver has to go to the Patriots.
Well, I think when Brady was with the team, it made sense. Like, guys were willing to take a discount to go play with Tom Brady and win rings. These Patriots are not those Patriots.
Kendrick Bourne. They don't want to take a discount to go play with Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, it's a different time, but I guess the official ending, to answer your question, the official ending to that will be whenever Belichick walks away, because whoever follows him, whether it's Bill O'Brien getting promoted or Gerard Mayo getting promoted or somebody externally, it's not going to have that same best coach of all time or conversation anyway, gravitas of let's go play for that guy.
You mean Matt Patricia isn't going to attract the top free?
Hey, he's not even on payroll anymore. He's somewhere else now, I think.
We'll bring him back. Don't worry.
There. He's always around.
That's right. He's lurking.
He's sharpening his pencils, baby.
Jeff, is New England still the it's frightening. You should be him for Halloween, LaMarca. Is New England, Jeff, to you the most likely situation still?
He's just Matt Patricia every day. He has to be someone else for Halloween. I think it is. And when you're looking at angles, one thing to think about is Juju Smith-Schuster has a receiving receiving yardage prop on DraftKings right now at 700. I don't think that number is abnormally high. I would have liked it more like 750, 725. But if Hopkins signs there, I might think about taking the under on that. Juju hasn't been the most durable guy either. He's had some banged up seasons. He's been around for a while now. This is actually his 7th season. So, we're just talking about angles and player futures. That might be something to look at, but I really do think that the market for DeAndre Hopkins, as Matt mentioned, is just not that big a deal. A lot of teams have invested in younger wide receivers. The Patriots are still out there, and unless something pops up and he takes some surprise deal to like Buffalo for a year, which I don't think is going to happen, then the Patriots make the most sense because they have the desire and probably able to just give them the most money.
All right, in the couple minutes we have left before we go, I do want to mix in a little bit with round 2 of the RBC Canadian Open, Jeff, and we have a new leader, at least from when we chatted yesterday after a 67 today, and that is Carl Jan. Am I saying that correctly?
It's Carl Ewan, I think, but it
matters to him. I'd like to say it right. Aaron Rye is right behind him, though, part of a 3-way tie for second place with Darrell Hatton and CT Pan as well. But it's just, I mean, a lot of guys had good days on the course, obviously. What direction is this going to go into the weekend?
Yeah, Carl Ewan is a good young player. He was really good on the Corn Ferry. I know there's some people around who have just been betting him, at every kind of like little event like this. So, like, don't be shocked if he has a good weekend, because he is definitely a player who in the future, if it doesn't happen this week, it will happen eventually. This might be just the launching pad for some more success. But I think right now, like Tyrrell Hatton going out and shooting 8 under on this course with a bogey is the guy to beat. Absolutely. We've seen him progressively just, playing really well all season. He started off poorly, so I didn't really necessarily think that this was coming, but I'm not shocked that he's gone out and shot a low round. But there are players lurking. I mean, Rory is now at -6. Justin Rose got himself to -6 today. So far from over. Corey Connors may get in at -8 as well. Far from over, but certainly Hatton, I think right now is the best positioned and probably the most likely to take this down. So that is where I would be looking. What's that? Sorry?
Favorite currently as well.
Yeah, definitely the favorite. And this probably isn't the spot to bet him, to be honest. You're probably going to want to see, maybe let Rory go out tomorrow and maybe look like halfway through the round or something. You'll probably get a better number. I think there's every chance that Hatton could start slow tomorrow. It's really hard to follow up those low rounds, but even if he does go into round 4, like a shot behind or tied with Rory, I still think it's a good spot. So the most likely, but this course has proven that, it's going to allow a lot of people to compete. You've got shorter hitters up there, and you're seeing some more, guys like Rory starting to make a move, but it's pretty jam packed, man. Like this could go a lot of different ways right now.
You could get Rory or Connors top 5, both basically at even money. I don't know if
hashtag fade Rory.
no confidence in Rory.
How could you? The guy fades in every event. I mean, now granted, this is a small event. It's a weaker field. It doesn't, it's not the same thing as Rory having a bad round 3 at Augusta. But I also think Rory's got a lot of other stuff on his mind at the moment. So it would not shock me at all if Rory disappoints over the weekend.
Listen, the man just wants to live. Like good Charlotte. He just wants to live. All right, you got Madden Sims coming your way. One is in a few minutes. That is the virtual Browns against the virtual Jaguars. Just a clash of the Titans. At 8 o'clock, Colts and Ravens. 10 o'clock, Bills and Chiefs. Now, if that isn't a potential AFC Championship game,
the DeAndre Bowl.
The DeAndre Bowl. All right, so thanks to Cody, our technical director, Eamon, our producer, Moose, Lamarca, Kaufman here with you. The Sweat, the Sweat, that's a combination of the two shows. The Sweat comes your way in the morning, Monday, the Slate in the afternoon, Monday, both shows through.